Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. As a kid, I had a lot of dreams in life. I dreamed of being a doctor. I wanted to take care of people in that way. I dreamed of being a veterinarian. I dreamed of, being a star dancer and just dazzling people with my, incredible talent. I dreamed of being a champion athlete. I even had aspirations of being a police officer or a firefighter. I wanted to be bilingual. Still kind of want to be bilingual, but haven't made it there yet. I wanted to be a famous musician, maybe an Olympic ice skater, maybe a gymnast. I even wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. But I'll tell you what I never dreamed of. I never dreamed of being a narcissist expert. That never crossed my mind. In fact, having this kind of knowledge about covert narcissism, that was not one of my life's dreams. But here I am. I didn't sign up for this. I certainly, didn't choose it. It got handed to me. I took on this role out of survival and desperation. I'm Renee Swanson, and I'm not a therapist. And I've got news for you. You are not a victim. You see, I am an advocate, and you are a survivor. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I am an advocate and coach for victims of covert narcissistic abuse. I offer both group and individual coaching programs. And you can learn more about these programs on my website, which is covertnarcissism.com. Have you ever been in therapy and you just feel like you're not making any progress? Maybe you go, week after week, month after month. I've met with people who've been going for years, but they still feel just as trapped or stuck as when they started. Now, I'm not knocking therapy, okay? It serves a very valuable role in this world, and I think therapists are amazing, and they can offer so many good things. But if you are going to a therapist who doesn't understand narcissism, you're not going to get all of the help that you're looking for. If you're going to therapy because you're battling being overweight and maybe you're trying to quit turning to food for your comfort, then you don't want to go to a therapist who's never weighed an ounce over 110 pounds. You don't want to go to a therapist that can't relate. If you're going to therapy because you're struggling to quit smoking and you want some help with this, you don't want to go to someone who has never dealt with addictions and they just have never had an addictive habit in their life and they can't relate. I'll be honest with you, at the time that I was struggling in my marriage, I didn't want to go to a therapist that had never been married before. Even just that, I wanted somebody who understood the struggles that happen in a marriage. And somebody who's never been married before, no offense against them, but they just can't. They can't personally relate. I don't hold it against them, but they will be limited in their personal understanding and their ability to relate to my situation. So how will a therapist who has never experienced covert narcissism possibly understand what you are talking about? And it's so hard to grasp, even when you have lived it. You can't learn this from a book. It's just not possible. You learn it from your own life experience. Maybe the therapist that you go to has been through normal, non-toxic breakups. Maybe in their life they've had normal marital conflict. And I've had many people come to me and say, my therapist tells me that I should be over this by now, that I should be able to move forward. And I ask them, do they understand narcissism? Because often they don't. They say to me things like, well, they don't want to talk to me about what my spouse did. They want me to forgive and forget. But I just can't stop the ruminating. Is something wrong with me? I'm trying to do what my therapist is saying, but I just can't. Maybe I'm beyond help. This is where the problem lies. So look, I'm not a therapist and I've never claimed to be, and I'm very open about that. But I am someone who gets it. I have lived this, and you can't just get over it. Time doesn't heal this. It takes very specific effort. You can't just forgive, forget, and move on. When you're with a covert narcissist, it just doesn't work that way. You see, I have faced the massive amounts of confusion. I have been through the years of ruminating. I have been curled up on my floor, in my closet, unable to function. I've never tried so hard at anything in my life as I did in my marriage. I am a hard worker, and I'm a very giving person. So I've had to face the self-doubt and the self-blame. What am I doing wrong? What am I missing? This is not a normal relationship. This is not a reciprocal relationship. This is not one where you can meet in the middle and you can carry the blame equally. We've talked about that. Okay, this is not a normal marriage, and it is not a normal breakup. When you're with your therapist and you're talking about the struggles in your relationship and your therapist says to you, well, you need to try talking to them maybe when they're in a better mood, or maybe you need to be more direct, or maybe you need to be less direct. Have you considered saying it this way or that way? You just want to scream. Yes, I've tried all of those ways and many, many, many more. You see, therapists who don't understand this are going to treat it like Therapy 101. I didn't want a degree in covert narcissism, and I would have given anything for this not to have been my path. You see, if this was not my path, it means that it wouldn't have been my marriage. I learned out of sheer necessity. I explored, I read, I studied, not because a teacher said so, not for a grade in school. I studied because I was dying inside. I studied because my life didn't make sense. I studied because I was hurting. And I studied like a lunatic because my boys were hurting too. I'd give anything to be able to say I know nothing about covert narcissism. And maybe you would too. Maybe you're feeling that way as well. Maybe by now I would have maybe heard the word in society, but I would love it if I could say, I've never had a need to learn about it. I sometimes wonder, what would my life be like then? I don't know. I never will. Now, I am an advocate for victims of covert narcissistic abuse. The Cambridge Dictionary defines advocate as one who speaks for, supports, and represents a person or a group of people who may need extra help or protection. I think of an advocate as someone who speaks up for those who are, not being heard, not being seen. The ones who need that voice, who need that extra support. They need someone to speak up for them because they matter. They need that voice. So in that regard, I certainly am an advocate for victims of covert narcissistic abuse. Now let's talk about you. Many people would say that those who have suffered at the hand of a covert narcissist are a victim. According to the Cambridge Dictionary, a victim is someone who has been hurt, damaged, or killed, or has suffered either because of the actions of someone or something else. Well, this is certainly true. In living with, being married to, being the child of, or any of the other relationships that we deal with a covert narcissist, you have certainly been hurt. There is no doubt about that. You have certainly been damaged. You have suffered because of their behaviors and their actions. But I want to dig a little deeper. According to the American Heritage Dictionary, the definition of a survivor is one who remains alive, carries on despite hardships and traumas, perseveres, remains functional and usable, lives longer, outlives, persists or remains usable through, and copes with a trauma or setback. I argue for each and every one of you listening to this podcast that you are first and foremost a survivor. Now, I can hear many of you, thinking or saying out loud, I certainly don't feel like a survivor. Maybe you're struggling to just get through each and every day. Maybe you don't even want to get out of bed in the morning, and maybe sometimes you don't. Even taking a shower can be a massive task. Maybe you're still in the relationship and you just can't even see straight. You're just trying to figure out how to survive. Maybe you're out of the relationship and you just, again, still can't function. You can't think, you can't see straight. You don't want to be around people and you're just feeling still very isolated and alone. Okay, I get that. I've been there. But let's talk about that being a survivor. When you were in that relationship, you were functioning out of sheer necessity. You may not feel like functioning in life, but you were doing it. That's because you're a survivor. You might not feel like feeding your child every day. You might not feel like taking your kid to the soccer game, but you do it anyways. Showing up for life every day and carrying on despite the way you feel, despite the weight of the world right now. this is being a survivor. If all you do today is you manage to get through your day and you breathe, you are still alive, you are still here, you are a survivor. If you are here listening to this right now, then that means you did something for your own healing, for your own health. You got up, you turned on your phone, you found this podcast. Why? Because you are seeking help, because you want healing. You believe that there is a better life for you, and you are pursuing that, and this is the heart of a survivor. You know who isn't here listening to this podcast? The full-blown narcissist in the world. You might be here listening and even thinking to yourself, yeah, but I have some narcissistic traits and I think I might be the narcissist, and maybe I'm listening because of that. Maybe I'm the one that's doing these things. I do talk to a lot of people who come to me thinking that and saying that to me. Listen, people who are genuinely seeking help and are capable of being vulnerable and self-reflective, those are not the narcissists in this world. They are the ones who are willing to do the hard work. They're willing to deal with their own negative traits, willing to deal with the messiness of life. You see, narcissists go to therapy because someone forces them to. Someone's given them an ultimatum, and so they give in. Or maybe they go to convince the therapist that they're not the problem. They go to convince the therapist that the partner is the one that's the problem. They don't go to get help. They go to further manipulate things, to take advantage of the situation. This is not the heart of a survivor. This is the heart of a manipulator. The personal growth that you are experiencing after being through abuse and trauma speaks volumes about who you are. This shows a person of strength, a survivor. And I will tell you this for sure. There are certainly far more survivors out there who understand covert narcissism than there are therapists who really get it. Now, whether you go to therapy or not, whether you come to me or not, find someone who gets it, someone who understands this type of abusive behavior from their own personal experience. Remember, this whole process is not about getting a diagnosis. Even if you're sitting in front of a therapist, they cannot diagnose someone that they have never seen. They cannot diagnose someone who has not come in their door. So it's not about the diagnosis, and you'll probably never get a diagnosis. So then why are we here? What is this all about? It's about gaining knowledge about what we are experiencing in life. It's about finding the words so that you can finally talk about this nightmare that you are living in the dark. It's about giving voice to the abuse, to the effects that it's having on you and on your children. It's about helping our world to understand that this is a real thing, and to understand the incredible severity of it. When you know what you have been living and you finally find the words, that feeling inside of you is unbelievable. It's like somebody turned on the light in that dark closet that you were on the floor of. Now, studies show that anywhere from 3 to 6% of the population have narcissistic personality disorder. Okay, that can seem really small. But I want to put this into perspective a little bit. You see, 5%, let's go with 5% of the population. 5% of the world's population is 500 million people. 5% of the population of the U.S. is 16.5 million people. Those are not small numbers of people with narcissistic personality disorder. And this doesn't count all the ones who don't go to therapy and get help. I'm going to put one more piece into perspective for you. Only 1 to 2% of the world's population has Parkinson's disease. Okay? Parkinson's disease has a lot of resources out there, a lot of knowledge and a lot of awareness about it, and that's amazing. But when the narcissistic person in your life says to you, well, you're only imagining this. Only 5% of the population have narcissistic personality disorder, so you just need to let all that go. Those numbers are not in your favor. I want you to remember something. Only 1 to 2% of the population has Parkinson's disease. How many of us have been affected by that? How many of us know somebody that's got that or been dealing with that in their world? Okay, this is not a small number. This is nothing to blink an eye about. Now, I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. I am an advocate, and you are a survivor. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast with your host, Renee Swanson. Be sure to check out our website at www.covertnarcissism.com. There you will find many resources just for you to help you on this journey. You can also reach out to me by email at Renee, RENEE, at cnglifecoaching.com. Those letters are CNG, as in Covert Narcissism Group. I do look forward to hearing from you. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson and the Covert Narcissism podcast is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. It does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and information provided.